of course, I would love to do that. I'd love to try to help out and be part of the GP team. And the question was always, well, how much can you raise? And I'm like, my question was, well, how much do you need? And inevitably, the first deal I got into, they needed to raise $2 million. And I said, well, I think I might be able to raise $1 million of that by myself. And so they did not lose that deal. Thank God they did not lose that deal. And to this day, I don't know how much they were counting on me, and they never really said to me, how much they put down in the book, because as a lead sponsor, when someone is raising capital for a deal, you're always wondering how much is that person capable of, and so, they may have put down 500,000, they may have put down 250. I don't know what they put down. But right. my belief was it would have been very easy for me to raise $1 million. And several weeks later, like 4 or 5 weeks later, and getting very close to the end of the deal, I can tell you it was the worst experience I've ever had. Almost every single person I called said no. And even people who had previously invested in some of my smaller deals were saying no. And I believe that it was because my other deals had been local. This deal was in Texas. I wasn't raising capital from anyone in Texas. Everyone was in Illinois and Indiana, everyone that I knew locally. And so that said a lot to me about one of the obstacles that you have to overcome, which is, how are you going to operate? And this is what an investor's thinking in the back of their mind that they probably are not going to voice, is how are you going to operate something in Texas when you live in Chicago? So that's going through their mind. And if they don't voice it, you don't have an opportunity to overcome the objection. And of course, you don't want to create objections that you don't know, although it is a good practice to kind of cover, let's say for sake of argument, the top 5 objections in your underwriting or in your presentation. But even with that, I failed miserably in that deal and raised very, very little money. In fact, half of the money that I raised was my own contribution. And it really, I'm not going to say it set me back, but I didn't get invited to raise capital again with that group. And I was invited later on by other groups. And so I kept practicing, but it's difficult. Even today, years and years and years later, I still go into every single deal wondering, are we going to make it? How are we going to get the capital? And I'm always looking for other people that are doing it, other people that we can bounce ideas off each other, other people's experience. After 40 years, I still don't feel like I have a good, there's people out there that are raising millions and millions of dollars and seem to be doing it easily. I'm not one of those people. I'm really not. I struggle every single time, it feels like. And so if there's a magic formula, I haven't stumbled upon it, even though I've tried what everyone else is saying is a magical formula. Everyone out there is, there's only so many ideas. And I feel like I've heard all of them and I've tried all of them. And they none of them have been a magic bullet for me. So every deal has been uphill. Every deal has been a struggle.
Right. I definitely agree that I want to go back to the first thing that you said, which was the guru's promise, and I'm going to say that, but that's what was done to me. Same exact thing. Just find the deal, the money will come. For all of you out there that's listening, it's not true. Okay. So, but as you was going through the process over the years, did you see, or did you find methods? Did you find techniques that advanced you to where, okay, now I'm raising more capital. I'm implementing this. I had to get this over here so that I can make this more successful. As the years went on, did you see where you had to implement new strategies, new things to get to a point where you could raise $1 million, $2, $3, $4, $5 million?
Yeah, so I'm always one of the things that I feel like I'm maybe a little bit different. I'm not reluctant to change. I embrace change very easily, and I always am looking for what's the next best thing, what's the next best method. And so I've tried a lot of different things in raising capital, but if I had to say what's the single best thing that I've done, I would boil it down to, it has to be, for me, it has, the thing that's worked is it had to be personal. So
Gotcha.
I didn't get a yes. I don't think I've ever had a yes that I didn't pick up the phone and call somebody and get a yes from them verbally. So I don't think I've ever had someone just mail in a check, based upon an email or based upon a social media post. And I know there's a lot of people that say that happens to them. I don't think it's ever happened to me. And so for me, the old-fashioned phone call is the single best method to raise capital, and constant contact. So I find that if I fall out of that constant contact, if I haven't spoken to someone for a couple of deals, it's almost like I'm having to rebuild a lot of the relationship. They remember me, they remember who I am, but they've now, when you lose the constant contact, here's one hard lesson I've learned is if you got an investor, you've got to try to keep deals in front of them all of the time. Because if you don't, once you've educated them on this process and how to find deals and where to find deals, if they get excited about it and they start investing 50 grand here, 50 grand there, another 10, another 20, 100 in 10 or 15 different deals, they'll do that without you even knowing that it's happening. And so if you're not in front of them all the time, offering them and talking to them and constantly gauging where they are, hey, are you still looking? Are you still looking to place capital? What kind of deals are you looking for now? What's got you excited? What are you hoping will happen in the next 6 months? Just a really kind of a casual conversation about their investment journey and where it's taking them and where they're hoping to go. And if you're doing that, you will be first in line for them to place their capital. But the moment you're not there, they're going to place it with somebody else. And so I think that the mistake I've made in the past and probably continue to make is that every once in a while I'll step back and say, okay, I'm done. I'm ready for retirement. Or every once in a while I'll step back and say, okay, my life's going to take a different direction. I'm going to go do this. And I'm not constantly in that raising capital frame of mind. And it's almost like starting over. Is it easier each time? Yeah, it's a little bit easier. And you don't forget what you have to do, but it's kind of like working out. If you work out for 12 months and get yourself in really great shape, and then you stop working out for 6 months, when you go back to the gym, you don't have to start from scratch, but you're not hitting those personal best that you were, whether it's, lifting weights or running or, hitting the jumper or, whatever. You're going to have to start over. That stuff takes practice. It's not something that even, and I use this analogy a lot, all the pros practice the basics every single day. And so what makes you think you can get away with not doing that, with not practicing the basics, without having constant follow-up, without touching them, 2 or 3 times at minimum, I think you have to touch someone 3-4 times a year at minimum. and you can use several different methods to touch them. But I think that the first year you're meeting with somebody, you need to touch them 3 or 4 times on a Zoom call or with a telephone call or in person. That first year, the first month, the first week, the most critical week, first month, most critical month, first year, the most critical year in the relationship. And you can start to trail off a little bit, but I don't think you can ever get less than 4 touches a year, even with somebody you've been doing business with for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years.
I have 2 questions, but I'm going to ask one first. You mentioned about the mind frame of raising capital. Can you go a little more in depth on what is that mind frame of raising capital?
Well, I think number one, everyone that's in this business or in any business, if you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an entrepreneur in real estate or in manufacturing or in the automobile business or a pharmacist or a doctor, you are always a salesperson. You're always trying to raise money. You're always a capital raiser. The number one thing that you always need to be doing is trying to raise capital. You can't expand your business, you can't grow, you can't do anything without capital. And there's only a few ways to get capital. You can raise it through investors, or you can go to a bank and ask for it. And my experience is, if you can get it from investors, you're always much, much better off. It's not the cheapest capital. In fact, the bank is much cheaper capital than investors are. If you think about it, if you give an investor a 20% return, you're not paying the bank 20% interest rate. So investors' capital is a lot more expensive. But with everything that goes along with it, I still think it's the best capital. I think that it's a lot more reliable once you build a relationship, and they don't seem to, the bank, a bank can change its lending policies overnight or in the middle of a deal, and they've got the upper hand.
That's right.
And it's not a cooperative relationship, and so I think you always want to be raising capital. And when you're raising capital, the mindset always has to be, I'm a capital raiser. I have to constantly be doing this. And I think the moment you forget that and you think you're a deal finder, especially on a smaller team where, you may have a team of 5 and everyone is pretty much doing all the jobs collectively at any one time. One person may be doing more of one thing than the other, but you're likely, all of you are doing, a lot of the jobs. You're sharing a lot of those responsibilities. And capital raising is one that absolutely needs to be shared amongst the team and everyone. Even if you have a superstar on the team, at the very least, people should be funneling leads to that superstar. If you've got a closer who does a really good job of closing the deal, but just doesn't have enough leads in the funnel, as another team member who hates doing it, but knows 100 people that could potentially invest in the deal, maybe all they do is set an appointment and then get on a conference call and let the closer do most of the talking. But you've always got to have that mindset. I'm a capital raiser. I need to stay in touch with people and have a plan around how am I going to stay in touch with them. And it can be a really simple plan. When I get on a phone call with people, I love hour-long introductory calls. I'll spend half of that time asking a series of questions that I ask every single person I talk to. And then I will, in kind, give that information back to them about me. And by the end of that hour, we know a ton about each other. And I'm very deliberate about it. I say, look, this is what I like to do on these phone calls. I want to know these 5 things about you, and I'm going to tell you those 5 things about me. Does that sound okay? And I've never had anyone say, no, I don't want to do that. That's too personal. That's, I don't want to share all that information. And because they know they're going to get it back. And so by the time I'm done, I probably know these pieces of information. I know the birthday. I know if they're married or not and what their anniversary date is. I typically will know how many children they have. I will probably know the month and the year that child was born. I know where they went to school and when they graduated. So just that information alone gives me about 5 or 6 or 7 times a year that I could send them an email, pick up the phone and call them, send them a letter, do a social media post saying happy anniversary, happy birthday, hey, hoping the happy 10th birthday for your son. Hey, this is I know you've got a big game coming up next week with Alabama. I'm rooting against you because I want Tennessee to win. Just little bitty things that allow you to continue to build that relationship and make it a more personable relationship with the individual.
Wow. Wow. You touched on a lot of stuff, something that I need to implement. You definitely have done that, especially some of those questions. The second question that I want to ask you is, you mentioned practice the basics. Practice the basics. I heard you say that several times. Practice basics. Please tell us, when you say that, what does that mean? What are practice the basics?
Well, I'll go back over those 5 or 6 items, and those are not the only things that I'm asking for. But you need to have a list of criteria of the things if someone would willingly give you any information that you ask for, you need to know what are the top 5 things you would like to know about that individual. And you need to make sure that those are the things you're constantly trying to get to. And those are your basics. That is you practicing your layups every day. That is you practicing bunts every day. That's you fielding balls, catching passes every day. Is knowing what that information is and then utilizing it. So how are you putting it into practice every day? Does that mean you're sending out X number of birthday cards per day or emails wishing happy birthdays? Does that mean you're making X number of phone calls per day? Does that mean you're making so many social media posts? Like the easiest thing in the world, and it's done for us. And look, I'm at this point in my life, I'm as guilty as everyone else, but on Facebook, almost every single person pops up on Facebook and puts their birthday in there. And Facebook reminds me all the time, this person has a birthday today. And so if I wanted to spend 30 minutes every morning, I could go in every single morning and wish every one of those people a happy birthday. And if I took the time to look them up in my CRM, I might personalize that message on Facebook and say, again, whatever little tidbit of information I have in the CRM from previous phone calls. And the reason I'm doing that is not just to win favor, but it's to build the relationship. Just saying happy birthday, if you get 50 happy birthdays from 50 different people, and you don't remember half of them, it's because you haven't actively been building that relationship. And so having some little tidbit that you remember about an individual, that not everyone else knows, or even if they know it, no one else is doing it when they're wishing them a happy birthday on Facebook. If you do something small like that, then you're going to stand out from the other 50 people that made a comment. And it's going to allow you to start to build more of a relationship where now they may interact with a post that you made, and you interact back on one that they made. They used to be following you on Facebook. Now they're asking to follow you on LinkedIn, and you just start to build a little more rapport. And that's really what we're all trying to get to, because there's so many to stand out today as a guru, as a mentor, as a teacher, as an educator. Everyone feels like we have to come up with a new twist. Everyone feels like, if I say the same thing everybody else is saying, no one wants to listen to me. And the posts that always get the most engagement are either controversial or they're alarmist. they're negative, alarmist, controversial, outlandish, garish. What's the old media saying? If it bleeds, it leads. Those types of posts, unfortunately, always get the most attention. So having said that, I'll give you an example of something that should be common knowledge, but yet we've got people out there now saying that's not what's important. That really isn't what you need to do. So for years, everyone said, if you want somebody to invest with you in your deal, they have to know, like, and trust you. And it kind of has to come in that order: know, like, and trust. And now I can't tell you, there's half a dozen people on the internet saying, no, that's not right. That's not how you do it. That's not gonna make it happen. And what's funny about that is that's basics. That's practicing basics. And it's worked for 100 years. But now, because you have to have something new, you have to say, no, that doesn't work. And that'll get somebody's attention, and they'll stop and look at that, because they're stop looking at everyone that's posting know, like, and trust, because they feel like that's old hat. They've heard it a million times, but they haven't heard somebody say, oh no, that doesn't work. If you do that, you might as well just get out of the business. You want a lot of attention, make those kind of posts. Even if it's, I'm sure everyone here knows what clickbait is in this day and age. And how many thumbnails have you clicked on where
Right.
the headline caught your attention and you clicked on it, and they never mention that in the story, especially on YouTube? You click on a thumbnail, and that picture they had on the thumbnail and the headline they had on the thumbnail never even comes up. And sometimes the video is an hour long and it never comes up, but they got your attention. And so there's good and bad to that, but I think you have to practice the basics.
Thank you. Now, I know you wanted to discuss something with the group, and go ahead and let's discuss that.
So yeah, I wanted to have just an open brainstorming session with everyone that's on the call. So we've got, I don't know how many people are out there listening on the live stream, but and feel free to DM us with your questions, because I know I'm not sophisticated enough to follow all the live streams while also being on Zoom, but have a casual conversation, because I think for 90% of people, if you were to ask them, and especially if they haven't been doing this long, but I even if you've been doing it for 20 years, I still feel this is true even for me. It's like, I feel like I always need to find a new set of investors. I need to, and you need to have probably 100 active investors in your database that they are actively participating in deals right now. And I will tell you that list will be ever changing, ever evolving. But some people are going to be, completely used up. Their money is used up, and they're tapped out. So, for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, they may not be able to invest until some of that money starts coming back. Other people may have life events and takes them out of it. Other people may have been especially right now, been in a couple of bad deals where they had capital calls, or they lost money, or the deal got repossessed, and they're like, I'm never doing this again. So your list is always changing, and you need to be updating it all the time. And I don't live, and I don't know, in my atmosphere, I don't feel like I know a bunch of rich people that have money, falling out of their pockets, that always want to invest in my deals. I feel like I'm always having to dig. It's like searching for gold, mining for gold. It's not easy. You have to just keep going and keep going and keep going. And every once in a while, you'll hit a rush and get 3 or 4 or 5 investors, and that deal was easier than the last. But you've constantly got to be looking for a new pool of investors. And so my question is, once you use up all your friends and family, creatively, where are you going to find your next 100? And so I would love to open up that discussion. I've got some ideas, that I can share with the group where I think you guys can go and find those investors. It's not just how you're doing it, but where do you go find them? And I'm going to tell you, it's not for most people, it's not going to be social media unless you're really super deliberate about picking up the phone and calling each and every person that makes a comment on your post. If you pick up the phone, everyone who sends you a friend request, that you get on a phone call with them and get them in your CRM and start getting those 5 questions answered. So if you're looking outside of our bubble, where do you look? Where can you go? And trust me, the hardest person to sell on a deal are the people in this room. And the reason is you guys have so much knowledge about real estate, you want to pick every deal apart. And you've got 10, 15 deals to choose from. So the hardest sale you'll ever make is in a room full of people like this. And if your social media post is a silo of real estate investors, if your Facebook page is a silo of real estate investors, you are competing with the best of the best. So my advice would be find a place where no one else is competing. And I like to say, find your own fishing hole. Don't go where everyone else is fishing. Find a spot where when you go fishing, you're the only one there. You may fish in a lake that is known to be the most successful bass lake in the world, and it constantly produces the most bass every single year. But if there's 100 bass fishermen on the lake at any given time, it's going to be a lot harder for you to land the bass that you want. But if you go to your own pond and kind of seed that pond with the bass, and you're the only one that knows there's bass there doesn't need to be near as many bass because you're the only one fishing. So how do you find your own private pond to fish in of investors that you want and you think will have the ability to invest in the deal? And I know Alicia's had her hand up 3 times already. So Alicia.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm in a different location today, but based upon the question that Jim asked, what I have found that has worked best for me, just like Jim said, people work with you who know, like, and trust you. What I found is just going into my contacts and making sure that I constantly stay in touch with them. If they have a call, then responding to their calls. If they have a text message, responding to their text messages. And what I did learn from my mentor, and I've talked with some folks who consistently raise capital on a regular basis, being able to send text messages or emails to your contacts that actually have a video or a voice response. When they can hear your voice, they get into the habit of knowing your voice and associating it with raising capital, longevity of expanding my assets, right? And doing the things that people need to help their money grow. And so that's really what's helped us get people involved on that side. And they're usually LP investors. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Alicia. I think those are absolutely phenomenal points. It's proven fact that text and email are still the 2 highest engagement forms of communication with individuals, if it's not a physical phone call. And so you hit both of those. And if you can concentrate your efforts there, they're much, much, much more powerful and than a social media post that people may or may not ever see. You still have control of that medium. You don't when you make a social media post. Facebook has control, Twitter has control, YouTube has control. You don't have control of who's going to see that. They have control of who's going to see it. And I think the most important piece I took from that is that you're constantly telling people, they get used to hearing your voice and they associate that with raising capital, which means if you're not telling people what you're doing and why you're there all the time, I know it gets boring, but you're going to be known for something. Are you known in your circle of friends as the jokester? Are you known as the serious debater, the person who always talks about politics or or home life, or you're going to the guy who knows every stat in baseball? You're going to be known for something. So don't be embarrassed that you might be known as the guy who always talks about real estate. Man, oh God, Jim, again, every single barbecue, that's all he talks about is real estate. Don't be embarrassed by that. That's a good thing. So Esteban, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Three things. First, to comment on your social media approach. I agree that one is quite tough, and to scale it whenever you don't have much of a following makes it even harder, because you're competing with everyone else on the platform, and you might have a split 2 seconds before the people's short fried attention span just scrolls past you. Unless you have a Ferrari and a massive building you bought behind you, it's hard to get eyes. So two approaches that I've seen and I'm working on that are effective is, first, targeting people with high W-2 incomes and low amount of time. So the first thing that comes to my mind is dentists. Why dentists specifically? Is because you can find groups of them. First of all, you can go door to door knocking on your neighborhood dentist. You could try that. You can go to local conventions and trade shows where people show dental softwares and technology. Just set up a booth, or don't even pay for a booth. Just hang out by the bar and small talk. And the thing is that dentists know dentists that know dentists and more dentists. And the thing about dentistry too is that they're more likely than not going to be a perpetual source of cash, because dental offices are amongst the most stable business investments of all. They have a less than a 1% failure rate. So those are solid people to go to, and of course, those might not be your big ticket $5 million investor type of people, but once you get into the right dental network, you could probably be pulling 6 figures from one individual, which is not nothing. And secondly, which is a little harder to formulate, but I have seen really work, is country clubs. It's more of a long-term play, but if you find a country club that is uncomfortably expensive, maybe that's a worthwhile investment. Maybe you can write it off. I don't know. And you just go to the driving range and just see how you can get your foot in the door with small talk conversations. Don't even bring up business the first conversation, and then you can just start, getting that rapport. And then, like you were saying, you'll be known. You can create a reputation for yourself in that country club as, oh, this is the guy that I heard someone invested their money with, and this is the guy that is a good investment. So those are the two strategies that I've seen work well.
That's fantastic, Esteban. Those are all great comments for this discussion, which is specific. That was very, very specific. Who do you go to? How do you approach them? Where do you find them? And I think that was absolutely phenomenal. So here's a little Q&A. So if everyone would type in the chat how many conferences you attended this year, and what was the subject matter. In other words, it was a real estate conference. So if you could type in how many conferences you've attended this year and what were they? And if they were all just one, if you've been to 3 real estate conferences, then just put 3 and RE. But if you're a dentist and you went to one and it was a dental, then just, put dental. I love that, Esteban. You're practicing what you preach. That's fantastic. So if everyone, for those that are on the internet listening, the overwhelming response, everyone has been to a lot of conferences. And these conferences, by the way, are not cheap. Most of them nowadays are running, $300, $400, $500. I've seen some of them up to $1,000 now. And we've got anywhere from one conference all the way up to 6 conferences that people have attended so far this year, with a lot of 3s, 4s too. And I want to say 2 things about the conferences. Number one, going back to the previous comment from Alicia, if you're in a room full of dentists, and we'll combine Alicia and Esteban's comments. If you're in a room full of dentists and you don't open your mouth and tell them you raise capital for real estate, or you raise capital and save people on taxes, if you're not telling everyone that, how many investors are you going to get out of that conference?
There you go.
0, because they have no idea what you do and what you need and what you want. So it doesn't help to be in a room full of investors if you're not advertising what you do. And if you have a hard time striking up a conversation, then do something that starts the conversation without you having to start it. Wear an outlandish outfit, wear an outlandish hat, dress up in a 3-piece suit, but put on shorts instead of pants. Have a bright colored t-shirt that you've made up just for dentists at this dental convention you're going to, that comes up with some cute quip that lets people, anything that will get them to ask you about the t-shirt. Why, hey, what is it you do? Or why did you have that t-shirt? Something that's an icebreaker, so that you have a chance to start talking to people that you didn't have to initiate the conversation. Let that help you initiate conversations if you're not comfortable doing it yourself. And so really great stuff there, Esteban. So Steve, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I haven't yet done this yet, but I've understood a couple of capital raisers. They will go to BNI groups, or they'll go to the Chamber of Commerce, and you just go down the Chamber of Commerce list there, and you can start to reach out to those business owners locally, because they're savvy enough to know if they're on the Chamber of Commerce. In theory, they're savvy enough to understand investment and commitment and everything. But the HVAC business guy is maybe not going to totally understand real estate the way we do, but he's still, he understands that it's another investment. He wants to put his eggs in another basket. The person who does architecture or engineering or whatever, some clothing lines locally, they might be good people to get out in front of and at least start some of those conversations. This capital raiser recommended putting together like little dinners for these people, where 6 to 8 people, you meet up with them, you explain what it is you do. You're not asking for money yet, but you start to build those relationships. And he goes with the route of teaching people how to do self-directed IRAs and 401ks, and that's something I'm looking into. How can I take that leap forward there? Because as you mentioned earlier, Jim, I keep pitching capital raising in front of a bunch of real estate investors who all want 18% return or better, and I'm like, well, I don't want to give you all the profit. It's a hard sell to the educated real estate investor.
Yeah.
Who knows what they want. And what Esteban said about the dentists and physicians and doctors, those are those high net worth, no time people that we want to get in front of as well.
Yeah. I think everyone would agree they'd rather be in a room full of dentists than a room full of real estate investors. So, I would change my focus next year. Instead of trying to attend 3 real estate investing conferences, to maybe attending 3 dental conferences, because you're going to have a lot easier time raising capital in the dentist. Now, the downside is, if we're doing a Ben Franklin here and say, okay, why would I want to be at the real estate conference? The number one reason, you don't have to convince them real estate's a great thing to invest in. And that's a huge, huge component. So they already understand real estate. They already want to invest in real estate. And they're already actively there right now trying to do it. So those are three huge benefits to being there. But you've also got, on the other hand, they've got a million deals to look at. They don't know you. They've already got, there's 1,000 people in that room that they can invest with. Where in the dental side, you're going to have to educate them on real estate. Same thing with the Chamber of Commerce. You're going to have to educate them on real estate. But that's a great opportunity for you to practice your pitch, and a great opportunity for you not to have to ask for money. Because in most of those situations, if you start asking for money right out of the gate, then you're going to lose them anyway. So it gives you the opportunity to build your brand and to build your what's the word I'm forgetting, the expertise piece of it, where they look to you as the expert. And that's a lot easier to do at a Chamber of Commerce or at a dental convention than it is where you're at a real estate convention that already has Brandon Turner and Kiyosaki and name off the top 5 or 6 people in your head in real estate are already there talking. So why does anyone want to listen to you? It's going to be harder to be that expert. So I would encourage everyone next year, if you're going to only attend one conference, do not make it a real estate conference. And I would also encourage you, make the conference at home, do it close to home. So in Chicago or in Vegas or in Phoenix, any large city, there's a number of conferences going on in your city every single year. Pick one and go to that. Saves you airfare, saves you the hotel cost. So it'll save you $1,000, $1,500 that you could reinvest in maybe being a sponsor at that one convention. And that would be a much better investment for you than putting it in a hotel room and an air flight and a rental car. And you can set up a little booth that says, what's the best type of income? Passive. Ask me why. Why are you paying taxes? Uncle Sam doesn't want you to. Ask me how. Do something creative to get people there that would grab their attention as high income earners, people that may work 70, 80 hours a week. And it's like, Jesus, man, how do I get back to 40? So, great stuff, Steve. And by the way, on top of that, the Chamber of Commerce holds a meeting every month, and they usually have 2 or 3 speakers every single time. And they're always desperate for speakers. And I can guarantee you there's not too many people up there talking about, even though you're not the local tax expert, find a tax expert on the Chamber of Commerce and partner with them. And you do the talking, because let's face it, most accountants are not verbal people. They're not outgoing people person. So
Jim, I love that idea.
Yeah, take advantage of that. You do the talking, you be the mouthpiece. He is your proof. He's your social proof. So.
Well, Jim, you said a mouthful. You said a lot of stuff. This was good. This was good, really good. Anybody have some questions? Let's open it up to some questions. Ask questions.
Or any other ideas of where to go look for capital. Because that's what I really wanted to brainstorm. If you've got an idea, even if you haven't implemented the idea yet, let's bat it around. Talk about, where am I going to go find capital? How am I going to do this? I'll go back to the country club. That's a great idea, but not very many of us can afford a $30,000 initiation fee and $30,000 a year to belong to that exclusive country club. But if you did have the money to go there, how often are you going to be there? Are you going to go there once a week for dinner so that you can hobnob with everyone? Are you going to go there every weekend and play a game of tennis or a game of golf and then hang out at the bar, have lunch and a couple of drinks so that your ulterior motive is to network? Well, if you're going to spend an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours or 10 hours at that country club, there's another way of doing it. Instead of spending 30 grand to join and 30 grand a year to be a member, why not volunteer your time or try to get a part-time job at the country club where you're working 10 hours a week and maybe you're serving the drinks instead of buying the drinks. And I guarantee you, you'll have an opportunity, a much better opportunity to talk to many more investors if you're serving the drinks. If you're just drinking, you're only talking to the person on your left and the person on your right. Where the bartender gets to talk to everybody and gets to always let them know, you know, there's always small talk. So the bartender is always going to let you know he's in real estate. Well, why are you here? I'm here to meet you. I'm here to find my next investor, my next deal. Well, why are you tending bar? Because it's the easiest way to meet you. Or I might be serving at the restaurant. I have a family member that just this last week, she recently graduated from MSU, and she works as a server at a local pub and restaurant that's owned by one of the judges and she works, you know, in that downtown area where all of the other judges, all of the highfalutin attorneys, all of the movers and shakers, the people in Senate and Congress and everything else in the local government all come to this bar. And she works there because she wants to know them. She wants to meet them. And she's just starting out in real estate. But she's already found a partner who partnered with her to buy the first asset. And she already found another partner who asked her if she would be his property manager. So she quit her other job so she could be her property manager. But she didn't quit this job because she already sees the value. I'm meeting all these investors that have money and they don't have time. Or they have money and they have time, they just don't want to have to do this. They'd rather be out golfing while I'm out finding them something to invest in. So, you know, you don't have to have the membership at the country club. You can get a job at the country club. Daryl, you have your hand up.
Can't take credit for this, but Kevin is here, and Dan.
Thank you.
So Kevin had an excellent idea, and it was
Yeah, another idea of raising capital was to go to charity events. People are already giving away their money there, and just letting them know what you're doing. You may find people with money who are also interested in those.
I did not hear that clearly because the microphone. So either could you, yeah.
Wait, you hear me now?
I do, yep.
All right, so another idea with respect to raising capital was attending charity events. People are already giving out money at that event, so just letting them know what you do. And once they're interested, more than likely they have the money to place in your deal.
So I love that you brought that one up, Kevin, because that's been on my mind a lot here lately, because the GOB network is a nonprofit organization, and most nonprofits have to raise money via contributions. You know, NPR, you know, any kind of charity group, United Way, they've always got people asking for donations. And so you can attend, and most of them will have like a big charity ball or a big golf outing or something where they're asking you for money. And at a minimum, they're usually asking for $100, $1,000, or a table sponsor who may spend $10,000, you know, to sponsor a table. And so that's a room full of investors that the vast majority of them are probably not investing in real estate. So that's a great room to be in. But again, it begs the question, if they don't know what you're doing and what you need, how do you make that known? Now, if you can get your hand on a list of the attendees, and how might you do that? How might you get a list of all the attendees of a yearly charity event? Any ideas?
the donation list?
Yeah, how do you get a hold of that donation list?
You
Go to
volunteered
the,
to help set up the event.
So Lorena's on the right track. So you volunteer to be part of the event organization. So you're going to help set up, or you're going to help do X, Y, and Z, but whatever you can do to volunteer so that you can get access to the list. Now, what I think the very best way to do that would probably be, either something on the accounting side of it or something on the marketing side of it, or be on the phone bank, where you have a list of people just to constantly be calling. Okay. Any way that you can get your hands on that list and it doesn't cost you, okay, anything more than volunteering a few hours of your time, that's a great way to get your hand on the list and then follow up with them. You don't want to be selling them at the event and competing with the charity, but you can follow up with them as investors and start to let them know what you do. And if you're lucky enough to attend the event, then I would fall back on, if I were to go to an event like that, it was a high dollar event, and I wanted everyone to know what I did, I might buy a tuxedo and print a big giant gold dollar sign on the back of it, just so people would ask me, what's that all about? So, or say, hey, I like your jacket. Yeah, ask me why I did it. Anything that breaks the ice. And the first thing you want to do, because you're probably going to have a very limited amount of time in a lot of these circumstances, the very first thing you want to do is say, hey, I've got a horrible memory, and I always want to remember a person's name and who I met. Can we exchange business cards? So get that done first, and then say, okay, let me tell you about why I did this. Let me tell you about, what it means. But do something that makes people wonder what you're doing, and something that makes them remember you. Any other ideas about where you might be able to find a group of investors that you're not looking at right now? Antonia.
Hi. Well, one of the things I was planning on doing, I've kind of started doing, is talking to my friends and family about their networks and giving presentations. So like my niece, for example, she was in the military. She's also a nurse. And so I actually started talking to her about getting some of her coworkers together or some of her ex-military pals together. And I give a presentation and we talk about setting up a investment club. So that's what I was planning on doing, and just kind of replicating that with different people I know in different industries, coworkers, stuff like that.
So I think we should stop doing meetups. And the biggest takeaway I had from what Antonia just said is there's a little known way around a lot of SEC restrictions. And I shouldn't say it's little known. I should say it's little practiced, because it's not been used very often with real estate. It's been used primarily in the stock market. And instead of having meetups where all we're doing is talking about real estate and trying to meet people, what if we stopped having meetups and instead organized an investment club? And what you invest in is real estate collectively. If you have 100 people coming to your meetup every month, but you've not found a way to partner with them, the easiest way to partner with them is for it to be an investment club. And then that also opens up the opportunity to ask them the hard to ask questions. How much do you have to invest? How often can you invest? When are you ready to make your first investment? How much do you make? What's your personal financial statement look like? All these questions that you normally have a hard time broaching that subject. In an investment club, everyone needs to know what they're capable of doing, or else the club doesn't know what it can invest in. The club doesn't know what its net worth is. The club doesn't know what its liquidity is. And anyone in the club should be able to bring a deal, which means if you are the person in charge of the club, you could bring the most deals. So Antonio, that and the other thing I took away from what you said is niche. So there's a lot of niches out there in real estate and meetups. So we have a lot of military meetups going on in the real estate industry right now. We have people that are just speaking to nurses in their network about real estate. We have doctors, white coat investors speaking just to their group. They're niching down, electricians, HVAC. But what I heard from you, one that I know no one is doing, is the military nurse. So did you say daughter, sister, niece?
My niece, yes.
Your niece. So your niece and you could partner up. You could be the expert on real estate. She could bring the network of and niche down, because you don't need to have all of the military. The more you can niche down, because at any one time, if you've got 25, 30 people attending your investment club instead of meetup or your meetup, if you've got 25, 30 people attending, you've got enough people to start making investments. So you don't need to have 100. So the more you niche down, you're already speaking to people that you speak the same language and you have other things in common. So part of that know, like, and trust is already built in because you have a lot of common background. So that might be something you want to try to take advantage of. So.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have, we're past time. Well, I hope this has been a very, very lively, engaging conversation with everyone today. I know I really enjoyed it. I hope that you guys got a lot out of it. I hope everyone came away with at least one new idea about how they can become a better capital raiser and raise more money. And if any of this works for you, make sure and reach out on social media and let us know. And if you hashtag GOB Network, then most of us in the GOB Network will be able to find your comment and be able to engage with you. And if you always want to get a few extra comments in your social media posts, then include that hashtag and we'll always get you a few more comments and a little bit more engagement. So Daryl, I'll let you wrap up.
All right. Well, listen, everyone, I want to thank you all for coming. And listen, don't forget about the Commercial Multifamily Mastermind that meets every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And as soon as the website is back up for the GOB Network, you all will be informed so that way those who are not a member can go ahead and join and become a member of the GOB. All right. So listen, everyone, I'm going to see you. Go ahead, Jeff. I
will say that you don't have to wait for the website to come back up. Reach out to one of us. The most active part of the GOB Network is our all of the materials we have on our Google Drive and our Slack group. And we don't need the website up for you to join or to be part of that. We can have we usually have an interview with you if you want to join. So if you want to join and you are an investor, just reach out to one of us, someone that you know that's in the network, and say that you want to join, and we'll send you a little questionnaire. And if you want to get on a call and discuss things, that'd be great too. So.
Sounds good. Okay, there it is. There it is. Thank you very much for that. That's updated information. So thank you all very much for coming. And guess what? Let's see you all back here next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you all. Commercial Multifamily. Commercial Capital Raise Strategy Session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.